welcome you all to the Gateway. This is the Gateway.
Hello everyone. This is actually episode 5 of SCC's The Gateway's Table Talks, an extension of our conversations that we have on our usual guest episodes. And on this episode, there's actually 4 of us instead of 2 or 3 of us. And we actually have a guest speaker on with us named Devin Muse. He's actually a tutor here at SCC. And really just going to give our perspectives on, the transitions to online platforms, a means of education, a means of, just different activities online. And, just give our own thoughts and experiences on just like a student level and also like on a national level. Mm-hmm. So with that, my name is Demarion Jones.
I'm Noah Allen.
I'm Kristen Gibson.
And I'm Devin Muse.
And let's roll right into it.
All right, cool. So I guess who wants to break the ice, get us rolling?
So I guess I will. This was a kind of a important topic to me to talk about because of personal experience this semester coming back to school completely online just to try to stay safe from COVID-19. In the beginning of the semester, I was very hopeful. I figured, they've had time to work on this and make a good platform for students. But the more that I did it, I realized that SCC, I don't think, was ready for the online transition. And that's kind of where I stand at that point right now from personal experience. And I think, something needs to be done, but what needs to be done? And I think that's why we're here today, just to kind of talk about that.
Well, I can kind of roll into that from my perspective, being in a fully online program before even COVID was here. Before we were affected by that here at SCC, my program was fully online. And just from being in the program, seeing what's required of me as a student, what the faculty requires, stuff like that, I mean, we got, 1-point-something million in the CARES Act for the college. But yet, as a student, I was still required to pay a $200 subscription for the programs I use as a designer. Plus, I had to, recently I had an assignment where I had to build a website. I had to pay for the subscription to do that, for the domain, everything like that. And being a college student, funding's a little short sometimes.
Definitely.
So,
I think online classes is actually more expensive than in-person classes.
Oh, yeah.
Even though these classes were kind of forced to, for many classes, because they are only offered online. So maybe they should be taking away that when we're forced to go online, when they don't have options. I mean, I don't know. And today with Devin, you've worked with multiple students at SCC tutoring. How many people do you work with?
Okay, that's kind of a difficult question, but I guess roundabout right now, this is a relatively slow semester. Probably weekly, I'm only dealing with maybe 13 students. Not really too many. Usually, I deal with more than that, especially in person. But a lot of people feel like tutoring has just gone away with the switch, especially to predominantly more online, because they're like, oh, they don't do online tutoring. We've always done online tutoring, but one of the big things, especially that I've noticed, is that it's gotten a lot more rigorous to tutor because now I'm basically teaching classes. And this is not a jab at anybody, but, I'm not paid enough to be teaching classes. But I am. And, that's not how it should be. But,
From a perspective of a tutor, do you feel you get a lot of students expressing their frustrations with the online transition as well?
Oh, definitely. This is one thing that is kind of nice about being a tutor is that you don't have – a lot of students are scared of the professors. Not all, but quite a few are. There's the whole thing of, oh, this person holds my grade in the balance.
And that's understandable.
Right.
Yeah, that's very understandable. That's very intimidating. But, usually in a tutor relationship, it's just like this person's just here to help me. I don't have, because tutoring's free, so, I don't have any money on the line. This is just me trying to get through the class. So I hear a lot more that I feel like especially the professors don't hear about because, of course, they feel like if they say something bad about the professor, if they say something bad to them, their grade's going to drop as a result, which it's not. They can get mad all they want, but as soon as they do that, then they're out of here. They can't do that. That's very not good. But, you hear a lot of frustration, and a lot of it comes, like you've even talked about it because I tutor you, that it's just a lack of instruction, teaching, and just everything in between. You have a lot of professors, especially, and email replies. Don't even get me started on those. Those are something else. One of the things that really bugs me when it comes to a lot of your professors is when you ask something about your curriculum and you're like, what does this mean? Or what do we have to do with this? And then they just say, oh, read the Blackboard shell.
Right.
Okay. Here's the thing that makes me mad about that. Two things. One, maybe they didn't look at the Blackboard shell. Okay, whatever. Two, but you need to assume that all the time they read it and they're asking for elaboration.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of problems with the professors, especially just assuming that people just don't do anything or don't read their shells or don't do the work, but a lot of them genuinely do. It's okay, like, if an email came back and it was just like, it's in the shell, but this is what I mean, and then they elaborate on it, that would make more sense.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, some do, but there's way more that don't, and that shouldn't be how that is at all. There's just, it's a big disconnect between professor and student, especially, because a lot of your professors, somebody phrased this beautifully to me, they don't remember what it's like to be a student. They just assume that, oh, everybody's on the same level as me, and if they're not, then they shouldn't be in this class. And that's just not how it should be.
It shouldn't. And we even had, we do Motivational Mondays at the Bridge on social media, and Cindy Bird, a math professor of over 30 years, she's taught math both in high school and college level. She's taught it 10 years here at SCC. Her motivational quote for everybody was, you should feel that you and your professor is a team. We should be a team. Your grade isn't just on you, because you can put all the work in, but if I don't provide you with enough material, you're going to fail the class. And so you should feel like a team and be able to reach out to students. As a student at SCC, I don't feel that way. I just don't. Like, I don't know.
And just to kind of echo that point, I think it's not just here. I mean, even going back in means of pricing, I think even a lot of like popular universities, I think I've seen something that said Harvard University is still paying, still having students pay the exact same prices that they were even if they were in person, but online, not including, any other costs that may be like maybe software costs or anything like that. And I think, I mean, from my perspective, being like my first year in college, I took entirely online classes, and then I think I had one, like my first year experience class that was actually in person. But I think a lot of that initially comes with like a lot of discipline and just what are you comfortable with? Like consider my perspective, already running online businesses. I'm like, this just rolls right into it. I don't have to come to classes often. I can just throw this right into my calendar and everything and stay organized. But a lot of times students, they're taking online courses. They're like, I need that face-to-face interaction. I need to be able to ask questions on the spot, or like I just don't get it initially. And then plus you have other means of like people may not have access to internet, or there may be interruptions between the internet access, but depending on how many people they have in their household. Considering a lot of students, a lot of freshmen in college, they still live with their parents. So my take on it is that I think I think you mentioned something where although there's professors that may teach like in-person classes, they may not have the exact credentials for teaching online classes. So I think it's a conversation of are the students exactly equipped for it correctly, and also like are the individuals teaching it actually kind of going back to your point, are they actually geared towards like helping out the student, or just kind of guiding them to read some other document?
And I can kind of add to that, and again, I'm not trying to say anything bad about any person or a program or anything like that. But I mean, take my program, for example. It's fully online, and I feel I have the ability to teach myself. But at the same time, I would also like some teaching from a professor. Like my thing is, a lot of my assignments this year through my degree were, here's this page number, here's the assignment, and it was like a step-by-step, like in my program, for example, let's use Photoshop. You're making a certain project. And a lot of the times with some of these skills that I needed to know, I'm not very, let's say, equipped for learning out of a textbook. I'm a very visual learner. I like to work very hands-on. So a lot of my education through this program has come from YouTube. Yeah. I mean, for example, that's how I taught myself everything in editing in Premiere Pro, which is what we use to edit here. It's what I use for my current job. Everything I know from that, I've taught myself over the past 2 years. And that's just from educating myself. So I guess that's also kind of a point of, is online education even necessary?
And like, that's the point I'm glad you brought up. So coming from an entrepreneurial lens, and that I'm also a student, I'm a sophomore now, it's it's interesting because I see this duality. It's where it's this idea that school is this golden ticket to success, when in reality, like 10, 20 years ago, that may have been the case. But today, you have people starting side hustles that are making more money than people that have degrees. And then if you think about it, I'm running online businesses. I'm like, a college, in many cases, can't really compete with the abundance of information that exists on YouTube University. I mean, there's thousands of people across the entire world putting out their stories, putting out their information, putting out their experiences online for entirely free. Then you're thinking, you have online platform, like you have even online platforms like, say, like, I don't know, Skillshare or Udemy or other platforms where you can learn online at your own pace. They have a price tag, but if you can pay $99 for an entire year worth to all these other courses, I mean, and you're paying $600 to $700 for a couple credit hours in a college, there's a different mix of like that mix of value. So it's been a lot of thinking on that concept and just having conversations with students like everywhere. It's like, what becomes the price tag that you can really put on that? I mean, and granted, if you're in school, you have that interaction with someone who is experienced in some cases, but, not to say that most instructors aren't, but, assuming that most of them are, it's not for everyone. So I'm put off by that idea that college is like the single route, especially.
And one more thing I'll add to that. I just lost my point now.
Go ahead.
You said something and it triggered a thought in my mind. I lost my point. Okay, so you said something about, dude, what was it? I'm so
Golden
sorry.
ticket.
Gold ticket. Dude, oh, yes, sorry. We'll edit that out. We'll do the technical difficulty stop right there. But so my big thing is, so far I think I have 2 assignments left until I'm done. I won't graduate till December, but I'll be done with my course. And so far what I've learned over this last couple of months has just been, updating my resume, my portfolio and everything, just trying to find a job. A lot of these places, they don't care what my degree says. They don't care that I have a 12-hour credit hour, certification in digital Photoshop.
They ask, what have you done? What is your experience?
Who have you worked for?
Yep.
What does your product look like? What is your experience? It's nothing. It has nothing to do with the piece of paper that I'm going to get. And honestly, that kind of just loops back around to, like, is college in general necessary? And I think it is. I really do. I think the whole online transition has kind of put a lot of people in a difficult place. Like, for example, I know you have a lot of personal experiences with online classes, and I would agree that they are frustrating. And if I were in that situation, I'd probably be feeling the exact same way you are. But I've talked enough now, so I'm going to let someone else go.
Well, I think it's important that the online education platform is very young. And I think through this whole year, 2020 has been insane. We've never went through a time like this ever before. And I think everybody talks about how it's affected our health and our world, but no one's talking about how it's affected our education. We're taught to think creatively at SCC. They encourage that. And I think we need to think about the problems that this online platform has, so this online platform is viable in our new world. You're talking about, is it reliable to get a college education? Well, if we're asking, is this reliable or not, something needs to be changed about the online platform and in education in general to make it viable. And here, I've had a few experiences. I have a class that I have learned, like 90% of my content that I've learned has been from my tutor or from YouTube. And so why am I paying for this class? When we pay for a class, most students, when they pay for a class, expect quality education. And just because you go to a small community college, and this isn't just at our community college, this is across the world right now, at all universities, all campuses, even elite universities, it's not just here. And my point is that something needs to be done. I actually found out by a reliable source is that they are encouraging, the humanities and arts department here at SCC is encouraging professors to teach classes that they have never taught before. They want to add more variety of classes to the programs, and they said, create something and try it and see how it goes. But there's nobody reviewing those courses before they go live. Only person that sees it is the professor, and they're trusting the professors to do their job. But I've almost got 2 associate's degrees now. So I've had a lot of online classes. and they say, I've taken great online courses. I've gotten so much content from it, learned so much, but I've also had some that I've learned more from YouTube, and I barely have enough material to pass the course.
Mm-hmm.
So why should these teachers be getting paid the same amount to be a good teacher as a bad teacher? Like, should there be a board that reviews these classes?
I think.
Or even maybe a peer review from like other professors before a class goes live online.
Mm-hmm.
Another professor that's qualified should review that content and say, I think this is good.
But then at that point, it depends. Like, what's that qualification process look like? Has like if Professor A is trying to teach an online class and they've never done it before, is Professor B, C, and D, have they taught online classes, or have they, like how many years have they taught, or what topics have they taught? I mean, if you're going from I don't know, say environmental science to political science, that's a difference. That's a difference. So it's where, what does that qualification process look like? And then I think, how are you going to, I don't know, what's the level of clarity that you have to reach with your students? Like, do you express, like I'm coming from this background, and like in our program, when we were taking business communications, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. We covered anywhere from digital photography to, I think a little bit of video editing here and there, and then like advanced Photoshop here and there. And then it's like, someone that goes into a different platform that, isn't driven to learn outside of the class, then you're really at a hindrance, when trying to figure it out. So I think it's a mixed bag.
I don't know. I think, and I don't know, personally, if I'm going to be paying that much for a course, whether it's online or in person, I want the same level of education.
Yes.
I want, if a teacher's never taught online before, I want a teacher who has taught online before, because when I look at a college course or something that I want to learn, I want to be able to learn something that I can't teach myself. Does that make sense? Like, I want somebody who has the experience in that kind of role to actually teach me something. Now, that's not to say, I can't go online and learn everything about it, but I mean.
I think you're just wanting like a different level of
Yeah, like maybe professional isn't the right word, but, I mean.
Because, granted, you technically can teach yourself anything.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I mean,
people learn to make lightsabers on YouTube.
I'm
playing, but not real. Exactly,
but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right.
like you want a human to instruct you.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying for. And I have a personal experience. I have a class that I just felt like I wasn't getting a very good quality education from. So I contacted the dean, which they encourage you to do if you have any issues. And so I sent an email, kind of frustrated, and I told her, I told her the content of the class, that I'm basically reading a chapter from a textbook and then expecting to take a test, and having no chapter objectives to look at, nothing else. And then her response was, the format your teacher is using for this class is what most of the math and science courses use. Students have a textbook, but it's up to them to teach themselves the course. The faculty assigned to the class answers emails and questions, makes sure the technology is working, and handles grades for the course. I am not sure what you expected a completely online course to be, but this course is what most of them are like. And that's quoted from her email that she sent me. And that discouraged me. It really discouraged me that they said this is what is expected for us to be teaching these courses ourselves.
It's the kind of thing where I get the standard form, or however she worded that, was, it's completely online class. You're expected to some degree, the professor of the school, whatever you want to say, when you're in an online class, they expect you to be able to teach yourself. That's fine.
Yeah.
I feel like students should know that going into an online class, but that doesn't mean the student should be left feeling alone in that course. They should still have that same confidence, or feel like they have that ability to go to their professor, even if it's over email, whatever it is, and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this. And they should still get that same level of interaction they would get in an in-person class if they were sitting in a classroom with a textbook open together.
And let's be honest, I don't think that we are at a place in online education that the quality is the same as in person. And that goes from here at SCC to universities all over our nation right now, because the online platform, and I'll say this again, it's very young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But now is the time that, in a time that online education is crucial and almost more predominant than in person because of our world right now in COVID-19. We need to learn and make it better.
And not all online classes are all created equal. So I mean, I think it's gonna be a bit, because I mean, you may have like one professor that's like, hey, I need to deliver my students the absolute best online platform process, even though I haven't had personal experience doing that. And then you may have another professor that's like, I've been rinsing and repeating the same system of things that I've been doing for years, but who's to say that I was actually any good? So I think I don't know, it's an interesting thing to think about, because I mean, it brings me back to the point of like, is it worth it? Like, what is the value in actually getting a higher education? And then it's interesting, because I mean personally, I think if you're going into, say, law, if you're going into the medical field, or if you're going into something that like requires you to have that experience, because you're going to be probing someone's brain, or you're going to be deciding if they go to prison or not, that's what I understand. Like, that piece of paper, it matters. But if you're going into, say, like graphic design, or even journalism, or in some levels even mathematics, does that really require you to have the piece of paper when like, say, you can spend a year learning from online platforms and learn as much as you want. If you have the right discipline, you can bang out like 5 hours every single day learning a plethora of different things, where you're not limited to just I don't know, English 101. You're not just limited to that certain spectrum of things.
I mean, for an example, I'll use someone who I've learned a lot from when I was talking about Premiere Pro, like teaching myself these editing and filmmaking skills that I now have as a job. Peter McKinnon is a YouTuber that I learned a lot from, and never went to film school, never went to school to learn photography or anything.
He's a goat.
Yeah, dude, and like, he's one of the most successful photographers in the world right now. He has, what is it? I think
Millions.
6 point something millions. That might be
yeah.
way off, and he gets to travel all over the world doing all this stuff. I mean, he took like courses from photographers, like personal courses, like they take a bunch of dudes out and like, hey, this is how you use a camera, but he never once got a college degree. I think like the running joke with him is he's 1 credit away from getting his degree, and he won't go back and finish it, just as like kind of like a a finger to the system, I guess, if you want to say. But that's just that kind of just ties back to your point, like, is it worth it? And also, I feel like we should clarify, not all professors are like the ones that we've related to today. There are probably some professors who are doing as much as they can, and they're struggling with the online platform. And that kind of brings me to the point of I had an interview with Dr. Castle a couple of weeks back, and I was just asking him what's coming in spring 2021. And you can find more in my article. Shout out. But one thing he mentioned, I think Dr. Hayes mentioned this as well, is they have professional development training coming up sometime in the spring, or maybe before the spring, where they're going to take the faculty and just kind of teach them or show them different things they can do for online classes to help improve the experience for the students. And I hope that's the case. And I noticed the other day they updated Blackboard that looks more modern, and I don't know if it works any better, because you know how Blackboard can be. But so I think there are steps they're taking to try to improve it, but I just think there are a lot of questions that nobody's really asking that need to be asked. And I feel like we've touched on a lot of those today so far. It's just there's some professors who have been teaching the same way in person for years, and then they have to log onto a computer, and they might be like, I ain't doing this. And there's some teachers who are like, oh, okay, I can do this, and they can get their entire course in person to online with no problem whatsoever. And then there's some teachers, everybody's different, and I think that there should be a level of, like, a standard. There should be a standard quality education to students who are taking online. Whether they're required to teach themselves, that doesn't matter. It should be the same quality whether it's in person or online.
Devin, you had a point?
A big problem with especially, like you all have been talking, like we need to get a standard set in place. Mm-hmm. A big roadblock to that is there's something for professors called, I want to say this might be the incorrect term, sorry if it is, academic freedom for them. Mm-hmm. And what it basically means is a professor has basically free reign on how they want to do the course, as long as it falls into that general spectrum of the content area they're covering. So, like, for example, somebody's teaching Calc 2, because I'm just saying that because I'm into math. How cool. And so technically, in theory, although they probably get, a lot of people complain, a Calc 2 teacher could just go over one subject, the same subject the whole time, even though in Calc 2 you go over, I'd say, at least 20 plus different content areas, typically. And they can do that. And that's a big problem because you can't make a standard when at the same time you tell them, yeah, you're basically allowed to do whatever you want.
Right, so is freedom a standard now? Or?
Yeah, I know. And the problem with that is, yes, that's fine, but, let's be real, let's be honest, let's be real honest about something real quick. A lot of professors are lazy. Not trying to be mean, just trying to be honest. There are a lot of professors who go in and they're just there for a paycheck because they're finishing out their doctorate, or they're just here for a job. And especially with the online courses, I'm not going to name any names. You know who you are. But some of you come in, some of you get an online, you get a shell, you put the shell out there, and then if anybody emails you, you're like, look at the shell, look at the shell, look at the shell, look at the shell. And it's okay to have a course set on autopilot. That is honestly fine. However, if you're going to put a course on autopilot, that means that you should be teaching more often because you have more time to be doing that. Because if you're on autopilot, that's way more time for you to be like, okay, I'm going to address all these emails. I'm going to address them very specifically, one by one. I'm not just going to copy and paste my same reply.
Yeah, because you're not programming students. You're supposed to be teaching them.
Yeah, and it's just, it's one thing that's really just a big roadblock. And some professors, it's good to have academic freedom. It really is. Because they take their class and they go above and beyond. My Calculus 4 teacher, loved her to death. Great teacher, wouldn't have had it any other way. But some just, it's not that way. And you do have to kind of think, and I don't think by any means that this is ever going to go away, the freedom that professors have necessarily. There would have to be some huge, huge shift. And you have to think, well, do we give them freedom so that the exceptional professors can be even more exceptional? Or do we set a standard so that the ones who are lazy can't just be lazy anymore?
It was that duality again.
Yeah. And, a big, this is how I feel. You should have a standard. The academic freedom should be cut down a little bit. It should only be freedom to a certain extent because this is how I feel about it, especially with my job. If somebody came in needing help with a class and I said, you need to go to the blackboard here, and then they asked me to elaborate, and I said, you need to go to the blackboard here, and I just repeated that over and over, I would be fired. I would be fired. I would be gone because I didn't do my job to that standard. And, it's just, no matter how you want to say a professor, how adept they are in their field, because, most of the professors here are very smart. Most of them are very exceptional in their areas. But, just because you're exceptional doesn't mean you can just, not teach, and that's just, it's a big problem. Being a professor is still a job at the end of the day.
Definitely, and I feel like having some sort of board that reviews classes before they go live could solve a lot of these problems, or even peer reviews, professors having to take other professors' classes, and I think it would take away some of that of the laziness that you've mentioned.
I'd say maybe including a mixture of students and staff on that board.
Well, I will say, we get the emails towards the end of the semester, or maybe even halfway towards the end of, I don't know really when we get them, but I've seen them. It's like the course evaluations,
right?
Where you can enter your course evaluation.
Right.
For example, with someone like my program, if I had a beef with a professor or a class, which I don't, just clarifying, I don't. If I did, my program has maybe 30 students in it at one time, it's online, so fully online. So, if I really had a problem with my classes, is that going to get changed? Is that going to get evaluated? Or is it just going to be a statistic for, however long? And that, to kind of go back to your point too, you said some professors are really, really good. And I will say, just from my experience in my program, my professors are very good at teaching online. They're usually, they fall into that line of they have 24 hours to respond. I would say 99.9% of the time get back to me in that 24 hours, unless they have something going on. And if they do, they usually say, no, I apologize, I had blank, So I would say that there are teachers, this kind of goes back to my point and to your point, that there are teachers who are excellent at the online platform and teachers who are not. And that kind of goes back to there should be more of a standard and less of a maybe academic freedom.
So I wanted to just kind of like, Mazel tov, like one last question for all of us to answer, and then like one for the audience. So what do you guys, I'll start off with this, but what are you guys most hopeful for, with the online education, considering that it is kind of within its youth stages? So, I mean, just from my perspective, I'm hoping that, more of the interaction is enhanced. So I'm hoping that there's a lot more interaction, because say like I'd look to hold like 20 to 40 meetings over Zoom throughout the week, to hold my businesses. So I'm like, if there's a lot more interaction over Zoom or or via Google Meets or any other platforms where it's like you don't have like maybe one or two students that show up, but where it's like there's maybe an incentive, but also like an understanding of value, because it's like you wouldn't miss a face-to-face class, 7 days out of the week, because you're gonna, there's gonna be a punishment there. There's gonna be some type of repercussions,
especially if it affects your grade.
Right, because it affects your grade. But then a lot of times there may be online students who are like, I don't need to go to online classes, because like, where's the value in it? Like, what am I actually missing out on? So I think if there's that factor of like that value factor that exists there, and then also some means of interaction with the students.
I guess my hopes for the online platform is I would like to see kind of what you said, more integration. Like, for example, I know UK, they have like, or not even just UK, but like other schools around, I'll just use them as an example, is they have meetings in Zoom as if they're in person. It's like, oh, class started in person at 2 o'clock. Well, now we're online. Class still starts at 2 o'clock. I would love to see more of that, where students actually have even if they're just there, the Zoom call is quiet, everybody's taking a test or whatever. I mean, how's that any different from a classroom? Right. I would love to see that more of that integrated into the online platform. And honestly, I would just like to see better communication. Not from my experiences, but from hearing, for example, your experiences, other students that I've talked to on campus for, interviews, whatever, the experience of just having better communication with their students. Kristen.
So I'm really looking for more material. I've taken both in-person and online classes, and I feel like I'm a good student. If I'm provided material, I will read it. I will research it until I feel confident that I can pass an exam. And just knowing what's expected of me as a student, that's really what I'm looking for. I have multiple classes this semester that I go in, and like I said, I read the textbook, and then I take an exam, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to pull out of that textbook. Like, am I supposed to learn every single thing that I'm reading? Because, I mean, it's proven by psychology, most people don't retain things after reading it one time or even reading it and taking notes. It has to be practiced. And I feel like, if I were taking these classes in person, I would be provided a lecture. And some classes do provide lectures, but just reading off PowerPoints, that's not the quality I'm looking for. And also, out of all my online classes, I only have one class out of 4 classes that does lectures. And they now have Blackboard Collaborative that they can provide lectures where it's not even have to be live. You can watch it whenever, like recordings. And there's professors that don't know about it. It's like I have that one class that I just read the textbook and then take the test. If they provided a lecture, I would gladly watch it. So I'm just looking for more online content, maybe the same quality that's expected for in-person.
Gotcha. Devin?
My hope is that one thing, and this kind of comes to a point you just made, is that the resources are made known to the professors, because a lot of professors don't know a lot about the resources that are here. Again, not going to name names, but we've had people come into the Learning Commons back when we were in person who we had to help put their shell together. When a professor who's about to run a course in a week does that, that's not ideal. And there needs to be more robust, like, professional development, stuff like that. I've been to one of the professional development days. Yes, a lot of the content they get is good, but the problem is how it's set up. There's not necessarily like mandatorily you have to go to this, you have to go to this, you have to go to this. Sometimes it's more along the lines of here's a bunch of stuff, here's a bunch of stuff, here's a bunch of stuff. You go to these things. A lot of people just end up going to what their friends are actually doing. And, that's not how it should be. There should be more rigor in that, but, it's too easy. But I hope that, especially with, like, a lot more people are online now, and a lot more people are having the grievances. And before, with students when they had grievances, a lot of times it was just kind of ignored, and maybe they put a Band-Aid on it or something like that. But now that you have more of a mass that's becoming more and more frustrated, I do hope that kind of pushes the school and the professors and just everybody to take more action in making things better. But we'll see.
Definitely. So with this, I feel like this episode we've echoed a lot of different points that a lot of people have had, both students and even professors. So I hope everyone gets a lot of value from this episode. But just really in closing, just wanted to pass the question to you all as our audience. What are you all hoping? What problems have you all endured? Throughout the course of this pandemic with the online transition, and then what are you all most hopeful for? Moving forward into 2021, and hopefully we're out of this. By then. And then with that, I'm your host, Brian Jones.
I'm Noah Allen.
Kristen Gibson.
And I'm Devin Muse.
And we're signing out on SCC's Table Talks.